Hi, this is Barry J. McDonald here, and I'd like to welcome you to today's episode over at writecom.com. And today I want to ask you a question. Are you still running on the spot? And what I mean by that, it was something that came up from a quote I heard on a video on YouTube, and it was Denzel Washington was given a speech to a graduation group, and he brought up this thing saying, just because you're busy doing more doesn't mean you're actually getting more done. And when I thought about it, it was so true. When I think back to when I was beginning my writing, before I actually wrote anything, I used to spend hours reading all these books about the craft of writing and, coming up with plots, storylines, backstory, character creation, all those different things. And, I could, like many people out there, they can quote verbatim, like all those different things you need to do this and do that and do the other. But I had all that knowledge, but I had nothing to show for it. I would look back and I would say that 3 or 4 hours I'd spent reading those books, I'd close down the Kindle and I had nothing to show for it. I might have had that knowledge in my head, but I hadn't actually done any work with it. I had nothing to show for that time. Like, even if I had got a napkin and, wrote down the bare bones of a kind of storyline or a character's backstory, I would have had something to show for it, but I didn't have anything to show for it because, it was all running on the spot. It's like when you're running on the spot, you look like you're busy, you're breaking up a sweat and but you look down at your feet and you haven't moved an inch forward from where you are. So many people, maybe do something on their laptop and then all of a sudden go off on a Google search and end up down a rabbit hole where they go over to Facebook and Pinterest and all that. And, somebody might say to them, oh, honey, you're a long time on that, working on that laptop, give it a break there. You're on there this past 4 or 5 hours, and to the outside world, it looks like you're busy, but sometimes you're embarrassed to think, well, God, I didn't actually do anything in that time. I've got nothing to show for it. Like if somebody come over and said, look at the screen and say, well, how's your book going? Or, I haven't anything to show for it. I heard something before on another podcast. It was really an awakening moment for me. And, if you imagine a triangle, and if you imagine the tip of the triangle, the very top, is the action that people take. And if you imagine the widest part of the triangle at the bottom, that is where most people are with their knowledge, to gather in loads and loads of knowledge and fill up that bottom part of the triangle. But then when it comes to the tip, there's hardly any action taken on it. And I was told, when I was told this, it opened my eyes to, yeah, that's the way I was. I was doing all this knowledge gathering. I was looking, thinking I needed to have everything perfect. I needed to have all my ducks lined up. I needed to have the perfect blog team. I needed to write the perfect blog posts. I needed to have all these things perfect. And then when it came to the action, it was only a small bit of action at the top. But instead of doing that, if you take the triangle and turn it upside down, and the small bit at the bottom now is where you should be collecting your knowledge. And the top bit, the widest bit now, is where you should be taking the action. So you should be taking a small bit of information in, and you should be taking massive action on the information that you got. So for example, if you bought a book on writing craft or something like that, read one chapter and then take massive action on what you've learned in that chapter. A lot of us buy these books and then it says, oh, at the end of the chapter, take notes or, do this little test or do something like that. And we never do. We just flick on and go on into the next chapter and say, well, I'll come back to it and do that. But you never do. And because of that, we never get the full value out of all these books and courses or whatever it is that ask us to do these wee little tasks. So maybe you'd be better actually doing that and getting the full value out of that book that you're doing. Take one chapter, wring out as much information as you can out of it, put all that into action of what you've learned. Even before I started writing, I remember looking back, at the hard drive that I had filled with all the reports and courses I had bought over the years. And, I always wanted to have an online business. I always wanted to make money online. And, I wanted to have an income that didn't rely on a 9-to-5 job. And, I could stand up and be independent from working for somebody. And, that hard drive used to be full of more reports. And I never actually took action on them. I was gathering in so much information. I think, oh, I need to know that to do this successful. Oh, I need to know this thing about social media. I need this thing about software. I need this and need that. And my hard drive was full of things. And all that knowledge was there. And I can honestly look back and say, I hardly took any action on anything of it. I had nothing to show for it. I didn't make a penny. And it came to a point at one stage where I was actually buying reports. And it was like deja vu. I was coming to a report and reading it and I was thinking, I know that already. And then maybe I buy something else and I'd say, I know that already. And I found that I had so much knowledge that the new stuff that I was buying was a rehash of everything else. And I found the people that were actually selling me this rehash report, they actually knew less than I did. But like the triangle being upside down, they mightn't have had the experience that I had. They didn't have as much knowledge. But for the little knowledge they had, they had created a report. They'd put a PayPal button on it and they were taking money in. Whereas I had this hard drive full of knowledge that was just totally wasted. So I want to ask you today, are you still running on the spot, or are you making progress? Put into action that triangle today. Gather as little knowledge as you want to, half an hour's worth or whatever, switch off the laptop or whatever, switch off the Wi-Fi or whatever it is that's going to distract you, and take massive action on that thing that you've discovered. Take massive action and keep your knowledge gathering to a minimum. Somebody said before that when he buys a book, even the book is like maybe $7.99 or whatever, he doesn't look at that book as a $7.99 book. He said he's always looking for $1 million idea in that book. And maybe you should do that too with the information you're gathering today. Take a tiny bit in and try and sift through it and try and find the most knowledge you can from that little bit and put it to use and take action on it. And, don't be like everybody else. Don't be running the spot and make progress. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. My name's been Barry J. McDonald, and if you'd like to come over to the Write.com blog, we have some great blog posts up there at the moment, and we also have some great free reports, especially if you're a writer and you want to know how to sell more books, and some promotion tricks that you can put into place to, make the most from your book promotions. So I hope you enjoyed this episode, and take care and have a great day. Bye-bye.